Hey authors, welcome back. I hope you are doing well. For those of you that might be new, my name is Susan. I am a freelance fiction editor specializing in science fiction, fantasy, and romance. And this week I thought it would be helpful to talk about what to look for in an editor. Whether you are going the traditionally published route or self-publishing, you are going to want to consider what you want in an editor. Who's going to work best with you to get your book in the best shape possible for when it publishes. Now, in talking about this, everybody mentions budget and timeline, especially when you're talking the self-published route because obviously you're the one paying for it. So timeline and budget obviously are key. You do want to make sure you're hiring somebody that you can afford and that can work within your timeline, whether you want your book out next month or 6 months from now or a year from now. But there's a lot more that goes into this. An editor is somebody that's going to be a partner with you on your publishing journey, hopefully for months, if not years to come, depending on how many books you have to publish, how many series you have to publish. You want somebody that's going to be able to support you, inspire you, and help you grow as a writer. So you want to look past just budget and timeline. So I've created a list of things that I would recommend you look for in an editor as you're diving into this research process. And I've divided it into two sections, before and after. So before you reach out, what do you want to look for before you even engage in all that conversation? Because most of us don't love to have tons of conversation with people we don't know. And after, so once you've started that conversation, once you've confirmed that yes, you can afford them and yes, they can work within your timeline, what should you look for? Okay, so before you even reach out, first and foremost, you want to do some research on what this editor's background is. Pretty basic, so you've most likely already done this, but you do want to look into whether they are reputable and whether they are a professional editor. It is something where you can just make a website and say you're an editor, and some authors do get lured in by those low prices. So I always want to caution people to make sure you're looking at not only what their credentials are, what certifications they have, just in general what their background is. And to clarify, I don't mean that they need to necessarily come from traditional publishing or have experience in that. There are a lot of phenomenal editors out there that have built up certifications and classes from a variety of sources out there that have worked with wonderful authors that have the experience and editing expertise that you will need. But you want to make sure you're finding the right person with that expertise for you. So you want to look into that background. A great way to look at this is to see who they've edited in the past. So like on my website, they will most likely have a list of authors or covers of people that they've worked with and edited before, so you can see what type of books they've worked on previously, as well as a list of hopefully glowing reviews from their clients. So you want to take a look at that as well. Second thing you want to look at is what genre do they specialize in. So editors can really work across the board, especially freelance editors like myself. So the beauty of my job is I can work on a thriller one day, a romance the next day, and a sci-fi the day after that. But most editors will have specialization, so they will have something that they work in specifically. As I mentioned at the beginning, I specialize in science fiction, fantasy, and romance. That's what I have the most expertise in, and as you look at my covers on my website and the quotes on my website, you'll see that that reflects that. So you want to make sure as you're looking at that list, not only for their credentials, you also want to look for genre. So if you're writing a sci-fi thriller novel, have they done that before? Are there any authors on there that you recognize? This is going to tell you that that editor most likely will be able to give you a lot of market and genre insight. So for example, if you are a romance writer and you send your book to a non-romance editor, they may be okay with the fact that your main character, dies horribly in a fire in the end because it works with a theme and maybe it connects with the hero's characterization and makes him realize all these sorts of things. It could be a beautiful story, but that's not a romance. If you went with that, they didn't flag it, and you publish it, you're gonna get creamed by the romance community because they love their happily ever after. So you want somebody that's going to be experienced in the genre that you're trying to publish in and that can give you those insights to make sure you're setting yourself and your book up for success. Number 3 is, do they edit in a literary or commercial style? So genre isn't the end of your consideration here. You want to look at not only do they do sci-fi and fantasy, but do they work in literary or commercial genre fiction? There's no final technical definition of literary versus commercial, but I did find a great article from Writer's Digest, I'll put the link below, where it talks about the differences. Basically, literary fiction focuses more on style, theme, it gives more of an atmospheric feel, it definitely has a slower pace as well, versus commercial fiction focuses more on higher stakes, action, faster paced, it has more of that commercial feel to it. It's a bit hard to define, as you can tell, but I highly recommend you check out that article and others if you're unsure which way your writing leans. I'm more of a commercial fiction editor, so my edits on your book are going to push you that direction. So if you have 10 pages that's describing the atmosphere of the castle and the trees and their journey, everything like that, I'm probably going to recommend you shorten that and get to more of the characters, the action, the conflict, everything like that. If you're trying to go for a more literary style, that's going to be the wrong choice for you. So you want to make sure you're keeping that in mind as well, so that they're pointing you in the right direction, as well as you're working with someone who has expertise in not only the right genre, but the right style as well. Number 4, do they have the services you want? Every editor does things a little bit differently. So there are some common services. Pretty much every editor I know offers a developmental edit, a line edit, things like that. But there are other services as well that may be tailored more to what you need, as well as how they're delivering those things. Depending on your needs and what you want to make sure the editor you're looking at has the service that you need and what you're going to get out of that. Finally, number 5, do you have anything in common? It seems kind of like a basic question, but again, this is somebody that you're hopefully going to be working with for a really long time, months, years, however long. So looking just at a surface level, their social media and their website, do you like their sense of humor? Do you like what they post about? Do you have anything in common? Most likely, however they're posting and writing on their website and social media is going to come through in a similar manner on their edits as well. For me, I use lots of exclamation points and lots of all caps in excitement and everything like that. As you can tell from this video, this is how I am. So if that's not your style, I might not be the right editor for you. So it's a really good indication even before you're reaching out. That way you're saving both of you some time to see whether or not you think you're going to get along with this person. All right, now let's talk about the after. So you've now reached out to this editor, they're great, they have the pricing that you want, they can meet your deadline, and they've passed all the credentials that I talked about before. Phenomenal. Now what? First and foremost, if you haven't done it already, ask for a sample edit. I cannot stress this enough. Never be afraid to ask for a sample edit. It may not be very long, only 5 or 10 pages, but it is a phenomenal tool to show you how they edit, what types of questions or comments they may give, everything like that, to give you an idea of what you'll get back from their edit, as well as it gives them an idea of your writing, your style, and whether or not they think that they can help you. It is the best way, in my mind, to tell how you're going to work together moving forward, so it is a vital tool to make sure you ask for this before you go into any agreement or give any money to the editor. Second thing is clarify deliverables. So I touched on this a little bit earlier, but as you're now talking to this editor and figuring out all the details of what service you need and what's happening moving forward, you want to make sure you understand what's going to happen during the edit and what you're going to receive afterwards. So are you going to get just comments in the manuscript? Are you going to get a full edit letter? Are you going to be able to have a call with them afterwards? Are they going to be available for questions, over email, anything like that? Editors differ across the board. So even if you've worked with an editor before and had a developmental edit, maybe this editor will do things very differently. So clarifying these deliverables is important. And if you've had an editor before, do not be shy in telling an editor, hey, I loved it when my previous editor did this, or I couldn't stand it when they did that. Please don't do that. I've had a number of authors come to me and say, hey, I would love comments, but please don't mess with anything in line. I've had editors that have overwritten my voice and it felt like they were rewriting the book. That's perfectly fine. And it's a good heads up to me to make sure I'm not triggering anything on your end and we can work together as smoothly as possible. So clarifying deliverables is extremely important. Number 3, do you feel like you can trust them? I know it sounds like a relationship, but I'm talking about in the midst of all of this, figuring these things out, getting the sample edit, asking for deliverable clarifications, everything like that. Were you comfortable asking questions? Do you feel like they were upfront and clear with you? Editing and publishing in general is a very complicated, subjective, and ever-changing thing. So you want to make sure you're working with somebody that you trust, that you feel is being clear with you, that you can ask even the most basic of questions, because that's how you're going to get the best results. A great example is if they keep writing show don't tell in your manuscript and you get that back and you're too embarrassed to ask them what show don't tell means because you know it's a relatively well-known concept in the writer community, but it still just hasn't clicked in your brain, or if maybe you're not sure how this one example of what they pointed out is telling versus showing, you want to make sure you are going to feel comfortable asking them that, because again, that's how you're going to make your book stronger and better than ever. Number 4, can you handle their criticism? So again, the sample edit here is key, because picture all of those questions and comments they gave you in however long of a sample, and imagine that on a full manuscript scale. They're not only going to be pointing out small things, they're going to be pointing out probably some bigger questions that are going to change your novel. I mean, that's the idea. That's what you want. You want to be able to change your novel and make it even better. But the question is, are you going to be able to take that criticism from the sample edit? Did you like what they had to say? And did you like how they said it? Which is also a very important component. Are you able to take that criticism and think about it? Now, that's not to say it's not going to hurt. No criticism is fun. But were you able to take that and say, okay, I agree with this, I don't agree with this. For this one that I agree with, maybe I'll do this, or maybe I'll talk to my editor about if they think this will work, or something like that. Are you able to take that and move forward with it? If so, it might be the right editor for you. If not, that's perfectly fine. Different people work in different ways. Again, like I talked about earlier, lots of exclamation points and shouting in my manuscript comments. If that's not going to work well for you, that's okay. You just need to find somebody that's going to work in your style so you can take that criticism and make it work for you. Finally, is this somebody who you think might be able to inspire you? So for example, with my edits, I'm sort of well known with my authors to give suggestions and radical ideas. So I will point out, hey, maybe this character has this issue, or maybe, hey, this plot point isn't working because of X, Y, and Z. And then in a separate comment that they are very free to ignore or read as they will, I generally put radical idea. What if, and then it's, what if the king actually turned out to be her cousin? Or what if, the main character turned into a donkey for a chapter? Anything like that. I swear some of those did actually work in the story, even though they sound ridiculous saying them out here. Now, when I give these ideas, I get turned down a lot. And I'm talking a lot. But many times, even if my authors don't agree with the suggestion I gave, it gets their brain working. So they're like, okay, the main character turning into a donkey, ridiculous. But what if they did this, which would then fix that, and then I could connect it this way? And those types of conversations are the best in an editing process. And that's the kind of support that you want. You're looking at the edit as a different perspective, not necessarily things that you have to change, but a perspective from a professional that is saying, okay, with my knowledge in the genre and with my knowledge of the market and books that are working now, I don't think this is working, or I don't think this works quite well. And if they give you a suggestion like I do, hey, what about this? Maybe you think of something else that works, and it inspires you and gets you excited to make that change instead of making criticism not fun and stilting your writing. It helps your writing grow and it helps your book become even stronger. These are the top things that I'd recommend you think about as you're looking for an editor. I hope this has been helpful. If you have any questions, I know there was a lot of terminology in this video. Don't hesitate to reach out. Feel free to like, comment, and subscribe below. It really helps the channel. And until next week, keep writing.